welcome to my first story time. Growing up, I just did really messed up stuff, and I don't regret it. I mean, I do a little bit, but most of them are experiences to me, and I learned from them, and yeah, and I just move on. So about 6, 7 years ago, I must have been in grade 11, and I ended up meeting this guy online. And we were talking on a chatting website, and he seemed to be really into me, and I was really into him. We exchanged photos, and it was good. And we were talking for about 5, 6 weeks. Let me tell you that this guy was living in Kelowna, and at the time I was living in Surrey. So the way this started is that we were talking for about 6, 7 weeks, and we were pretty into each other. At the time I was, grade 11, I was 16, 17, and he wrote to me around the same time I was having issues with my family, and I've always had issues with my family, with my parents, but the issues around that time had become a lot worse, and I had thought of, prior to even meeting this guy, I had thought about just running away, living with a friend, living with a boyfriend, but at the time I didn't have a boyfriend. So this guy, I was telling this stuff to this guy. I was telling him my problems, and I was saying, I don't like my parents, I'd like to live on my own, this is it, whatever. I was being a 16, 17-year-old. So one day he writes to me and says, "Hey, I'll be coming into Surrey. I'm wondering if you wanna just pack your stuff up, and I can pick you up, and we'll go to Kelowna and live together, and yeah, that's it." And me being 16, turning 17, I thought that was a great idea. I was 17 in grade 11, and he was 23. I know. I was into him because he was an older guy. He owned his own home in Kelowna, as far as I know, and he had a vehicle, he had a dog. He ended up driving all the way to Surrey, to my school, to pick me up. The reason he couldn't pick me up from my home was because then my parents would have noticed all my junk packed up in a bag, trying to leave the house. So what ended up happening is I told him, "Hey, you can pick me up from school during lunchtime, and that way I can just kind of leave a note in the locker for my parents, and say that I'm moving with somebody to Kelowna." The day comes, I write a note. I'm at school. I write a note to my parents, leave it in my locker. He was driving a truck, a white truck, and he calls me and he says, "Hey, I'm outside, come out." So I ended up grabbing my bag from my locker, putting the note in the locker, and just going with him. It was my first time also meeting him in person. Oh man, thank God he was good looking. He looked the same as his pictures, so I wasn't being catfished. He was everything that I expected, to be honest. He was charming, very, very beautiful eyes. That's the one thing that I will always remember about him, that he had these light hazel eyes. And I remember just him driving and me looking at him like, damn, he is a gorgeous man. Wow. Okay. He ended up getting into his car. We drive about 3 hours into Kelowna. He stops in the middle of the road. We come out of the car, and we end up having sex on the side of his car, literally on the road. But like, this is the car. We're having sex on this side, and the cars are on the other side. So they can't see us. So to me, it was also almost like, looking back at it now, it's like, why couldn't we just do it in the car? Like, why did we have to come out of the car to do that? It's just, that was weird. There's some parts I can't tell you because it's just very inappropriate, and I think if my parents were to see this video, I don't know, they might disown me. We get back into the car, we take a little bit of a nap, and we wake up. We drive another 3 hours into Kelowna. At this point, it's 7 p.m. We ended up getting to Kelowna. We drop by at the superstore, get a little bit of like groceries and stuff, and then we drive to his place, to his house. Yeah, and it was just, yeah, I remember having not a care in the world, and I don't remember being scared or being a little bit suspicious or anything like that. That this guy could murder me, that he could just, I don't know, keep me hostage. I don't know. I did not care, and I don't remember thinking about that at all. That is crazy. Looking back at it now, that sounds completely freaking insane. He drops me off at his house, shows me around a little bit. We end up having like cereal or something because he hasn't made food. And I don't remember having dinner or anything like that. So then so the first night goes by. I'm in his room. We sleep the first night, and then wake up in the morning, and he says to me, "Oh, I gotta go to work." I guess you have work, but couldn't you just like stay a few days? Cause like I'm kind of new to this whole thing, and it says my first time being at your house, my first time meeting you, so like you couldn't have taken a few days off maybe from work? Nope, I gotta go to work. Okay. So whatever, he goes to work. He has a dog, by the way. His dog stays in our room, but at the time I remember being scared of dogs. I have a puppy now, and I love her to death, but this was like 7 years ago, so I wasn't used to being around dogs. So his dog stays in the room, and I'm kind of glad, because I look at the dog and I'm like, okay, if anything, she'll protect me from anybody in this house. If there is anybody if somebody comes into this house, this dog can protect me. So he ends up leaving. I get this idea that maybe I should go through his stuff and just like check to see like if he's crazy or if he's got something that's like, it suddenly hits me that I'm like, whoa, wait a second, I don't even know this man. Let's go through his shit, see if I can find something. So then I ended up going through his drawers, didn't find anything. I go into his living room, and there's nothing, but the living room area and the kitchen area is full of items. So he's like low-key a hoarder. And I remember thinking, what the fuck? But I thought that maybe he was like moving and these were the things that he was getting rid of. Yeah, that I remember not having a clue what the fuck that was. So I end up going through his living room, nothing. I go into his closet, I go through his clothing, and I look at the top shelf. And I'm just kind of like, okay. And I like feel my way around, just around the shelf. And like I touch something that's kind of like solid and has like ridges and stuff. And I reach in further to grab it. And like I grab it and take it back, and you guys, it was a fucking gun. And I'm like, ah! And I start shaking, and I don't know, it was my first time touching a gun, and then it went through my head that now my fucking fingerprints are on it. What am I gonna do about that? But at the same time, I'm like, I didn't fucking do anything. I just found this gun. So I'm like holding this gun, and I'm just like trembling. I remember being really scared, and this shit was so heavy. I ended up trying to go through his bathroom and find alcohol, and like I tried to sanitize my fingerprints off of this gun because I'm not sure what this gun was used for, and just trying to tuck it back in the same place and just kind of cover it because I didn't want him to know that I saw the gun. And I started receiving text messages. I get text messages from PEI, is where I used to live before I moved before I moved into BC. So that summer was my first summer in BC. Prior to that, I was living in PEI, and my family and I had moved into BC. That's why my friends were texting me from PEI, like Charlottetown, PEI, so from the East Coast. And my friend was saying to me that, hey, cops are looking for you in PEI. And I said, what? And she says to me, yo, our CMP came into the school and questioned everybody that you were friends with. So, oh, I felt terrible. I felt so terrible. And I texted my friend and I said, yo, tell them that I am not in PEI. I am in Kelowna and I am safe and sound. Like, why? Who's made a big deal about it? Anyways, I ended up finding out that it was my parents. They had contacted the police and had reported me as missing. Just a couple of hours later that day, I started stressing out. I was like, I don't know, like this is starting to look crazy. This is not looking good for me. Let me just call our CMP and just say, hey, I'm safe. You don't have to look for me. At this point, I call our CMP and I am on the line and I'm like, hey, my name is blah, blah, blah. I am safe and sound. I'm in Kelowna. I'm living with this guy. And they ask me, hey, what's the address? And I give them the address. And they're like, okay, so then we're going to send somebody to check up on you to see if you're safe. And I said, yeah, sure, send somebody over. You'll see I'm fine, more than fine. So I'd like maybe half an hour later, our CMP shows up at the door. The dog goes crazy and very protective. The door was unlocked, I guess, and I said, come in, and the lady enters and she looks around, looks at me. She's like, are you okay? And I said, yeah, like, what is the problem? I remember thinking, what was the problem? Not knowing that I was the problem. Yeah, and ended up coming in and asking me if I was okay. And then she says to me, do you know what this place is? And I said, a house? You guys, I did say that. I was being a smartass. Anyways, she says, do you know whose house it is and who owns it? And I said, well, it's this guy's, which I can't really say the name, and his dad gave it to him, so it's passed on from his dad to him. So now he's residing in this house. And she says to me, she says, the guy that owns this place used to run a brothel house out of this house, where I think she used the word brothel. I'm not sure. She said something about women coming in here, getting injected with a bunch of drugs and shit, and men coming in and having sex with them. And that put me in a total shock state, and I was just completely shocked. Because I heard that and I didn't know how to react to it, I started crying. And she says, she's like, okay, you need to come into into the car and let me take you to the detachment, and we'll go from there. I'll call your parents and they'll come and pick you up. Anyways, I remember getting inside the car, like the back seat of the car, And I remember it was because it was, honestly, you guys, it was my first time being in a cop car at 17, because you only see that shit in the movies. Um, that whole, that fencing that they have between the front driver passenger and the back seat, that fencing, the protection fencing, that scared the shit out of me. And I started thinking like, oh my god, I've committed a crime. This is where the criminals go. And yeah, I remember crying and crying, and I was just really, really scared. And I thought, yo, like, I'm not so tough. So I started texting the guy, and I was like, where are you? Come see me, because the cops just came and picked me up. Why did you lie to me? Why didn't you tell me that your dad used to run a brothel in in your home? Why didn't you tell me that? And he's texting me back saying, hey, he used to, the house is under my name now, so none of that stuff has been happening, and I just live here. And I remember not believing any word he was saying, because the police kept telling me a whole bunch of shit about him and his dad, and how they are part of a drug thing in Kelowna. Yeah, I can't get into details about that, because somebody watching this might know who this person is. So then I was just completely terrified, and the police take me to the detachment. They put me in a cell with another runaway. So there's another girl in the cell with me. And I remember seeing this, the mat that they give you to just kind of sleep on, because they said it'll take at least 5 to 6 hours for my parents to arrive, so might as well just sleep. At this point, it's late at night, so it's around like 8-9 p.m. I lay down on this mat and slept. And then oh no, I forgot one part. So then when I arrived to the detachment, they asked me questions. They sat me down and in a chair, and this lady cop was asking me questions like, hey, did he do anything to you? Did you guys have sex? I said no, but I had hickeys all over my neck. But I didn't know I had them until the lady mentioned it and said, then what is that? And I said, nothing. We had done other things, but we didn't have sex. Like, it was all consensual. She started asking me like, hey, did he abuse you? Did he do anything to you? And I said, no. Like, it was all consensual. I asked him to come and pick me up. We did not have sex, although we did many times. Some of the shit is so uncomfortable to say, because it's just not me, and I've never put myself in a situation like that ever since, or be prior to that. So it's just very uncomfortable. And I'm not gonna get into the stuff that I was going through at the time. There was a lot of changes happening in my life, and it was just, I guess, I don't know, I just did stupid shit to compensate. Yeah, so she put me back into the cell. I laid on the mat, slept for about 6 hours, and then my parents came. As you can imagine, they were really mad. I thought I was gonna die. I thought they'd kick me out of the house. But yeah, that was the story of how I ran away at 17 with some guy who was 23 at the time, and drove all the way to Kelowna to live with him, because I genuinely thought that was gonna be our forever after, that it was just gonna be it. Like, I was just gonna live in Kelowna, go to school for the rest of the year and graduate. Never thought about how I would be attending school and how I would be registering for school. Never thought about the fact that my parents are legally still obligated to take care of me. I just thought that this guy was 23 and somehow he'd take care of me. I don't know. There was no thought into it, okay? There was no thought put into it. I just packed my shit and decided that I was gonna live with some dude in Kelowna. That's all. It doesn't seem that long ago, but it was one of my craziest shit that I've ever done in my life. One of the craziest shit. One. I have more, but that'll be for the next video. Thank you so much, guys, for watching this video. I hope you liked it. Click the like button below and subscribe to my channel if you want to hear any more of my crazy ass stories. Okay, bye guys.